The past year was challenging worldwide, and Keystone was certainly no exception to that. Throughout the pandemic, the safety of the individuals that we support and of our employees was the driver for every decision that we made and every action that we took. We had no handbook or manual to navigate many of the situations that we faced. So as an organization, we had to adapt, often quickly. But at every turn, the creativity and the strength of our extraordinary staff was nothing short of amazing. We were able to continue our work, changing lives through inclusion and respect.
So generally speaking, when you think of hospitals, you think of very nurturing environments, caring environments, environments that are supporting best practices and solid recovery focus. And that really is your vision when you think of a hospital. And Dorothea Dix, who was a brilliant teacher and activist in the 19th century, she had that same vision for a hospital. She spearheaded the effort in 1845 to bring the Harrisburg State Hospital here to our area. And that was her vision, but unfortunately, it's really drifted from what you would typically think of as a therapeutic hospital environment. But that effort put forth by her is something that really lit the torch in all of us at Keystone. The heart of all of us at Keystone really is focusing on deinstitutionalization. We want to get away from that mistreatment, and we really want to support people in a proper environment where they can have respect and solid treatment and work on their recovery goals. We are focusing on empowering individuals and supporting them in the least restrictive environment as possible. And really, our goal is to get the individuals to be the driver of their own recovery path. It's very important for them to be in charge. We're here to partner alongside of them, but they are in charge of their recovery, the goals that they're working on, the support systems that they're pulling on. They are, at the end of the day, the most important aspect of the service that we're providing.
People who end up in government institutions in India are people who have been, abandoned by their families, oftentimes lives of complete deprivation. So the idea of deinstitutionalization is a real challenge in India, first of all, to get people to care about people who are living in those institutions, and to say these are people who have something to offer. And in fact, what they have to offer is something that's needed in the world. And that if they don't get to offer what they need, the society isn't going to be as good as it can be. Our work has centered around trying to help a few people leave the government institutions, trying to convince people that those women can grow and live and offer things and participate in the economy and the community in really successful ways, just given the opportunity. And we've helped 6 women so far leave the Nari Niketan and start very different lives, living in small community homes in regular neighborhoods. You could really, really see the benefits to the women and also the benefits to the community, because now they're offering. Their future is full of possibility. I mean, I do think they feel that way now, that life is moving now, and it's moving ahead, and that they have things to look forward to that they also can't imagine. So I do think it's a bit of a sense of wonder that they're doing things that they've seen other people do, they've heard other people do, and now they get to do it too.
At the very beginning of Keystone, 1972, we know that we're trying to focus on helping people move into full, rich community life and out of institutions. But we didn't have a lot of ideas about how to do that. And some of the best work, the best supports, the best progress was made by working in collaboration with others, especially people with disability, thinking about how that should look, what they want for their life, what should happen next. Keystone International is built on that foundation, right? So we, from the very beginning, were thinking about how do we respond to the growing rights-based conversation around disability, the questions that people have about how do we create more access for people and with people with disability in society. What really is been a huge success for Keystone in our growing global impact are leaning on and contributing to powerful partnerships and collaborations that really help to elevate the voice of people with disability and the voice of service providers who are struggling and really striving to make good choices when we think about inclusion and what that means.
2009, 2010, we started with the self-determination training in order that persons with disabilities that stayed for 20 or 30 years in residential institutions will acknowledge what is their role in the communities, how they need to, what are their rights, how they need to fight for their rights, whom they need to approach, and so on. Persons with disabilities are visible also because I would like to say that local public administration started to think more on how to develop accessible services in communities. The accessibility is a big problem, and up to now in Moldova we have many inaccessible buildings, public buildings I'm talking about. But now, because people with disabilities became more visible and started to have meetings, discuss with local public authorities and so on, they started to follow the rules regarding the accessibility. And we have now in many communities built accessible roads and accessible buildings, public buildings, because of self-advocacy movement. And I think that is very important also. And also people with disabilities became more visible because of mass media, I would like to say. And practically Keystone Moldova has a very good partnership with traditional media and with traditional journalists. They are invited at many events Keystone Moldova is organizing, and media became interested in showing more the life of persons with disabilities. Little by little, the public opinion is changing. You know, the public opinion or the people start to think that persons with disabilities are similar with other persons, with general population, and they also shall have a right and can have a very good life living in community, better lives than in institutions.
Inclusion in the labor market translates to inclusion in the community for people. So employment supports not only the economic independence for a person, but it also has a positive impact on the growth and enrichment of a community by having a diverse workforce. We provide a thing called vocational assessment, which is to kind of understand what the person's strengths are and what their interests are, and then to try to match that with a job. We also have supported employment, where we support somebody at their job. So they may need support in remembering how to do the certain tasks that are required, or maybe just understanding social cues in a work environment, and the differences of relationships in a work setting versus a private setting or a personal setting with family and friends. First and foremost, it's the person we're trying to support. Do they feel good? Are they feeling good about their job? Are they feeling good about our support? So it's them telling us that they like it. But there's also the employer telling us that things are going well, that the employee's doing well, that they're love that we're involved in helping the individual. So you have those feedback from those individuals. But most of all, it's when we have people who get a job and love their job and then maintain it. So we've had individuals who've had their jobs for years and love their job, and that's the reward that you get in the end.
Person-centered planning and person-centered services are the core of what Keystone offers. So So a person-centered plan is a plan that takes an individual's interests. It helps that individual grow those interests for them to become hopes and dreams. And it takes those hopes and dreams and it creates a service goal that then helps those hopes and dreams to become reality. So in effect, if someone has a goal to live more independently, and they're living in a residential home right now with 2 or 3 other people with disabilities, and they want to live independently on their own, a person-centered plan would take that dream, would help identify what is important to achieving that dream. So for example, they might need to learn to cook more independently, or they might need to learn to take their medications independently. We would create support and services to help that person achieve those dreams, create a systematic approach so that person could eventually live independently on their own and become more successful in their community. So Liz, the Medicaid waiver is really only 40 years old. And that was the basis for people moving out of institutions and into the community. In fact, waiver means to waive the institutional requirements and to have community settings. Well, what are some of the interesting things that you see that have been developed throughout your services in order to meet individual needs and help individuals with disabilities become contributing members of the community?
So we look for ways that they can engage with their community, learn those soft skills, the communication skills, how to interact, how to build their confidence. And really it varies home by home, person to person. And it's something that we focus on all the time.
In order for someone to live a fulfilled life in the community, the first thing is they have to have choice. Choice meaning, and talked about this earlier, person-centered planning. Choice in participating in the community in the way that they deem appropriate.
When you talk, I hear some of the same themes that you've mentioned, Liz, that ability to recognize and support someone transitioning from a congregate institution into a life in the community represents several challenges.
So in Connecticut, one of the issues that we have is the waiting list. Right now, the waiting list is so long. We have parents that are in their 80s that are trying to find a placement for their adult child, and they can't. Connecticut doesn't have the capacity right now in the state to have homes for all of these people. And the only way they are getting into a CLA or a CRS is through an emergency placement once the parent dies. They end up on the waiting list. But until that primary caregiver passes away, they're not eligible to even make it onto the waiting list. That is how strongly the services are needed. That is how badly and desperately they're needed.
You bring up a good point, Liz. I think one really important factor for keeping people out of institution is to have adequate housing, affordable housing, and appropriate housing. A lot of the people we support, we try our best to fit the housing to their needs and their wants. So for the people that want to be extremely independent, we try our best to support them in the way that they want and have support wrapped around their goals and their wants and their aspirations.
One of the things that we're doing at Keystone, and we're looking forward, out 3 to 5 years, is looking at that intersection between accessibility and technology and understanding the roles that, you need to build smart environments that can respond to people's needs. So you need to have, if someone has a physical challenge, how does they turn on lights? Well, you can turn on lights with movement, or you can program lights, or how do they answer a doorbell? We have Ring doorbells now. How do they navigate throughout the home if it's not accessible? So you build accessible housing. So for someone who has a physical challenge, the power of just having control of the environment can't be underestimated. And I know it's an important initiative across Keystone to make sure and to plan out and to have that vision that the house is an important part of that person's life, and control over their environment is absolutely essential moving forward if you're going to provide quality services.
Each dog we place impacts at least one person, and what we've learned is it's actually more. So even in placing just one assistance dog, I'll give you an example. So we had a veteran that came and received a dog in June. So he is part of a family. He has his wife and his 2 young children. And in doing that, we not only impacted his life and his ability to be able to do things, but we have changed it up for his family as well, because his wife has said he's a different person with that dog. We see our future being so bright, being able to train more dogs, being able to have a better education space for our learners, which include our partners receiving dogs, and also our volunteers who are training our puppies. So having a space that is really conducive to learning.
Here at Capital Area Head Start and the nation, Head Start is meant for children to get a head start in their life. The disparity of education is huge. We have generational and educational gaps in our children that are at high risk. So Head Start was put into place to help those disparities and help those families gain that knowledge and education that will give them a step up. Capital Area Head Start has been able to provide a stable, high-quality education for families and their children, as well as some of their extended family. We don't just concentrate on the mom or the dad, but maybe the grandma or the aunt or the uncle, and whatever their home life is and whoever's involved with them, we try to support them. When you have a group around you that is maybe different outwardly than what you are, you learn to accept, you learn to work beside, you learn to play beside people that may not look exactly like you or be able to play exactly like you. And you build a sense of empathy, a sense of support. You build internal mechanisms that when in life, when you come across people in your workforce that is different from you or they respond to you differently, you have that groundwork of being able to understand. You're able to be a listener. You're able to buy in, if you will, with what they're saying, and you have an open mind.
I think the word that best describes Keystone's experience over the past year is resilience. We have remained true to our mission of building a more inclusive world.